Luca lived immersed in a vortex of notifications, apps, and social media. Every morning, his awakening was marked by the insistent ringing of his phone, a continuous succession of requests that seemed to never end. His work in a marketing agency pushed him to always be online, and even his moments of leisure were pervaded by that digital ticking that now ruled his existence. There was no room for silence, for reflection, and Luca, day after day, felt more and more tired, trapped in a life that was slipping through his fingers. If you find yourself in this feeling, don't miss out on more stories like this. Subscribe to our channel for inspiration and moments of reflection. One evening, while walking through the city, staring at his phone screen, Luca accidentally bumped into an elderly woman who was standing on a street corner. The phone fell from his hands, crashing to the asphalt and cracking like his state of mind. The woman, with a kind smile, said to him, "Maybe it's time to watch where you're going, young man." Those simple but meaningful words continued to buzz in his head as he bent down to pick up the phone. As Luca walked home, he couldn't shake the sense of emptiness that had taken over him. His life, which had once seemed so promising, now seemed to be made up only of screens and virtual connections. In an attempt to find balance, he decided to turn off his phone for a whole day, but the discomfort that followed was almost unbearable. Without his phone, he felt lost, without purpose. He didn't know what to do with his hands, nor how to occupy his mind. Have you ever tried to detach yourself from your smartphone for a whole day? Share your experience in the comments. In an attempt to find a way out, Luca signed up for a meditation class held in the heart of the city. The meditation center was an oasis of calm amid the urban chaos, and the teacher, a man in his 40s with a serene smile, welcomed each participant with a deep sense of stillness. During the first class, Luca sat in silence, but his mind was in turmoil. He thought about work, unread emails, and unanswered messages. He felt the urge to check his phone, but he resisted, trying to focus on his breathing, as the master had instructed. Every day he returned to the meditation center, and little by little, he began to discover a space of silence within himself. That silence, which at first frightened him, revealed itself to be more and more welcoming. It was as if he had finally found a place to rest, a place he had never known before. However, his journey was not without difficulty. Every time he wandered away from the center, the call of the phone was strong, almost irresistible. If you often find yourself struggling to let go of old habits, try focusing on your breathing. Comment below with your challenges and discoveries. One day, after a long meditation session, the master gave him a small bracelet made of braided rope. "This has no magical power," he told him, "but it can help you remember to be present. Whenever you feel the need to pick up your phone, touch this bracelet and remember that the real connection is not with the outside world, but with yourself." Luca accepted the bracelet, skeptical, but decided to give it a chance. From that day on, whenever he felt tempted to return to his old habits, he touched the bracelet and breathed deeply. He began to notice how his mind was less agitated, how he was able to observe his thoughts without being overwhelmed by them. As the weeks passed, Luca realized that not only was his relationship with his phone changing, but he was also changing the way he lived his life. Mindfulness can transform every aspect of your life. Experience this change for yourself and discover how much you can grow internally. Meanwhile, his colleague Marco, with whom he had been working for years, seemed to be following a completely opposite path. Marco was a brilliant man, but his life had become a constant race against time, between work appointments and 1,000 notifications. Luca watched him with concern, seeing in him the reflection of what he could have become. One day, Marco had an emotional breakdown. The weight of his digital life had become unbearable, and his body and mind gave in. It was then that Luca realized how important what he had learned was. He offered Marco his support, sharing with him the lessons he had learned during his meditation journey. Although Marco was initially skeptical, he decided to give it a try, and little by little he began to follow in Luca's footsteps. As time passed, Luca found more and more pleasure in the small moments of life. The noise of traffic, once irritating, became a background that no longer disturbed him. The crowded streets of the city, with their lights and sounds, were no longer a source of anxiety, but simply part of the world around him. He had found peace in the midst of chaos, a peace that did not depend on external circumstances, but on his internal state. One day, while walking through the city, Luca ran into the old woman again. This time, he greeted her with a smile and thanked her. The woman, with the same serene look, replied, "You don't have to thank me, young man. Wisdom doesn't come from outside, but from within you. You've learned to look." Amazing how a simple encounter can change the course of your life, right? Have you had a similar experience too? Share it in the comments. Luca realized that his journey was not over yet. There was still much to learn, but he now knew he had the tools to face the challenges. It was not about giving up technology or living isolated from the world, but about learning to live consciously, without letting it overwhelm him. The bracelet he wore on his wrist had become a simple reminder of what he had discovered. True peace is found in knowing how to be present, in knowing how to listen to the silence within oneself, even in the noise of life. Marco, too, after facing his difficulties, began to attend the meditation center. The two colleagues who once were on opposite paths now walked together, sharing a journey towards a more conscious life. The change had not been easy, but together they had learned that in a world dominated by technology, the true connection was the one established with oneself and with the present moment. Experience a new connection with yourself too. Don't miss the next transformation stories. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. Luca, finally free from the weight of his smartphone, sat on a park bench that evening, watching the sky slowly darken. He felt his breathing calm and regular, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel the need to check his phone. He knew that, wherever he was exactly where he was supposed to be.